Welcome back to GameScoop, everybody. I'm your host, Damon Hadfield. I'm joined now by Greg Miller, Justin Davis, Colin Moriarty, and we're talking about Call of Duty and gamers, and whether or not Call of Duty players are gamers, and what makes a gamer. How do you define it in today, 2013, as we roll into a new generation of consoles? This comes out of a story this week. Call of Duty executive producer Mark Rubin says, "We have an enormous amount of players who are more in the casual game space, but they play a lot. It's kind of a weird, ironic thing to say. They aren't hardcore gamers or even gamers at all, but they play Call of Duty every night."
Your wheels just grind and seize together when you read that sentence.
Which led GameScoop superfan Big Tony Style to ask us, after the Call of Duty devs said superfans of the series are not really gamers at all, I was wondering what the Scoop Crew's thoughts are on the term gamer. How do you guys define gamers, or is it a term that even needs to be defined?
Oh, I'm going first.
Like
I don't know. We're all just looking around to see who goes first.
Greg and I touched on this. Greg and I touched on this a little bit in Podcast Beyond yesterday, which was I'm more confused about why everyone wants to categorize this and disparage the other things that people like and enjoy. And
who's disparaging who?
Everybody's disparaging everybody else.
Yeah, I'm a hardcore gamer, not one of these casual Call of Duty players.
I think about my cousin, and he's my PlayStation Network friend or whatever, and I see him every once in a while, and he plays Call of Duty all the time, and then he'll play like Madden a little bit and like NHL a little bit, and that's it. But otherwise, he's always playing Call of Duty. Now, would he consider himself a gamer? Probably not, but he likes Call of Duty, and that's fine. That's his prerogative. And it seems like with Call of Duty, because it's so popular, that everyone just wants to take a stab at it because it's on the at the top, and even its competition, like we were talking about on Beyond, loves to take stabs at it because it's beating everything else, And so I just don't understand. I'm into like more niche JRPGs, for instance, and things that and I don't care what other people think about that. And people that play Call of Duty don't care what other people think about them playing Call of Duty. So there's a lot of disparaging going on with trying to categorize people as this kind of gamer or this kind of gamer. Who cares?
That's the whole stereotype, right? Is that people they play Call of Duty and Madden, and we all know that these gamers exist. Those are the only two games they play every year, or maybe NHL or some other sports game. And we know a lot of gamers like that exist because Call of Duty sells so much better than anything else that comes out. So just math shows GTA, you. Except for maybe GTA. So it's just interesting that Infinity Ward recognizes this about their own game.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a poor choice of words, but there's no better way to explain what he's trying to say, right? He's trying to say that he understands this is a franchise that will sell to groups of people who don't buy other games, who don't know what Gone Home is, who don't, have a DS, who are only in it for Call of Duty or in it for Madden and stuff. And so to say casual makes it sound like he's taking a jab at him when he's really just trying to say that they aren't the person who's on IGN every day. Reading everything and trying to figure out, are the PlayStation DualShock 4s, are they in stores right now? I need to get out and check it out.
It's a total mistake to say that they're not gamers. And I'm sure if he could roll back that statement or modify it, he meant to say sort of what we're hopefully clarifying now would be my assumption.
I mean, it's easier for him to say, right, they have this hardcore Call of Duty audience that maybe isn't a hardcore gamer. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think labels like that. I also hate the labels. I don't like calling things indie games, just because that doesn't mean anything anymore. Core gamer doesn't mean anything. But that's a shorthand for what's a very long explanation of do you count as a core gamer?
It's a nebulous description.
Is it the amount of games that you play? I was telling Damon that my mom is 60. And hour for hour, she probably doesn't play video games that much less than me. Because she has a slot machine app that she loves, and she plays her Wii, and she plays Brain Training, and she plays a lot of video games.
Still plays Brain Training?
I don't know. The Brain Training might have fallen off by now, but for a long time she was doing a lot of the Brain Training and iPad games and stuff. And
what was her take on the whole Dead Island torso with no head? Right?
Exactly.
She's not a real gamer. Get the fuck out of here.
And so it's so you can nitpick this stuff. You can nitpick this stuff to death by being okay, hour for hour that must make her a core gamer. But maybe it's the type of games that you play. But Call of Duty is a hardcore game, but they're not considered core gamers. So it's all those labels are kind of silly, but it's a shorthand for stuff that people kind of understand.
I mean, who does it matter to? So I could see it mattering to marketers, people who knowing demographics is their job, right? Knowing how to hit certain demographics. But why does it matter to gamers?
Because I think there's something to be. I mean, I think there's still a sect of gaming that is into it and feels like it's their thing, right? When I was growing up, I was the gamer kid in my group of friends. They all went and played sports and everything else. So if they were going to be considered gamers, I wouldn't have had a problem with it, but it would have something that made me unique, right? is suddenly maybe not lessened, but to some people it is. It's lessened the fact that this person who only plays Call of Duty is a gamer just like me who plays everything and can tell you the ins and outs of the PlayStation Network or something. Like I get it. I don't think it's right. I fall into Colin's camp of why do you care?
Yeah.
If you're enjoying what you do, whatever gets you, man.
Sure. Like Minecraft all night long.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me. I mean, it just goes back to, people being critical of other people's opinions. It almost ties in the same way where it's like, why do you care what they play? Why do you care what they like? We often have, we brought up the example of Resogun, which is like by far like my most anticipated next gen game, and everyone's like, it's an indie game, and it's $10, and it's stupid or whatever. And it's like, hey, I really don't care what you think about Resogun because I'm still excited about it. If you want to have your own opinion about it, that's cool, Like, why can't we all coexist in like an ecosystem where it's like, I like what I like and you like what you like, and the Call of Duty gamer likes what he likes and the Madden guy likes what he likes, and that's fun because it's not a huge groupthink, hive mind kind of thing going on here.
Yeah,
that's what's exciting about gaming to me.
I think maybe the next gen consoles have raised people's hackles a little bit. Where I feel like that died down for a little bit. For a while, people were kind of just playing what they play, and maybe this is just like I'm seeing things differently than reality. But I feel like that fanboy stuff has definitely been and even in IGN comments, it's like people hate indie games, people love indie games, people hate this, people love that. Like it seems to be getting a little bit worse after dying down for a few years.
I wonder if maybe just the console generation.
That's what I mean. Like there's new consoles coming out and people are like putting their flags in the ground and setting up camp again, and then maybe that'll die down again.
Well, that's why I've always been talking such good things about PC gaming because you never go anywhere. You got the WASDas and you're good.
You were trolling hard last night. I give you a lot of props for that.
Those WASDas.
Yeah. Going home.
Actually, getting back to whether or not these hardcore Call of Duty fans are gamers.
Yeah.
What if you come home from work every night and you watch the same movie? Just the one movie over and over again every night. You spend a lot of time watching this movie, but does that make you a movie lover?
That's a good point. Like I'm not like a huge movie guy. Like Greg knows, I never go to the movies. I refuse to go to the movies. It's too expensive. I don't care. Like I'll watch things on Netflix and like watch TV shows. I love serials and stuff like that, but I'm not really into movies. Now there are movies I love. Right, like there are movies that come out that I'm like really into, or there are older movies that I really love. But I would never claim that I'm a cinema buff or like I'm really I'm a moviegoer. I like movies, but does that matter to the person who enjoys the movie? Like if I'm like I love Caddyshack, and some other guy's like I love Caddyshack too, and I've seen more movies than you. It's like, okay, cool. I guess that means something to you, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Like, the thing I was thinking about is, like, I love football, right? And I understand this game. I understand the game of football. Greg understands the game of football. When we watch it, we can identify a blitz. We can look at a package and figure out what they're doing.
But
my girlfriend will watch Jets games with me, and she's still learning the game. She's only been watching it for a few years, and she'll have a lot of questions. But does it matter? Like, she enjoys the game as much as I do. She likes to watch it. She might get something different out of it, but she sits next to me and enjoys those games and gets into them, even though she's seeing something different than I am. And she might not watch Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football, but she'll watch those Jets games. And I'm wondering, like, what does it matter? She's into the football, and it's just a different kind of thing. And we should embrace that kind of things. The bigger games get, and the more they proliferate, the more kinds of games we're going to get. The more people we get in, the more money the industry makes, the more kinds of experiments people will take, risks they'll take. I don't understand like why we're so obsessed with disparaging people that play Call of Duty. Specifically, it bothers me.
I mean, I think that is a minority of people, though. Like, I know guys that, come home, they had a hard day at work, like they're usually, like, again, this is a stereotype, so there's all kinds of people that play Call of Duty, but I know dudes that have, like, blue-collar construction worker jobs. Yeah. They get home at the end of the day, they're tired, they just want to shoot some dudes in Call of Duty, and that's how they unwind. Sure. Like, they're not, like, big gamers, and they don't really care that much. Like, even though one comes out every single year, like, it's probably like, oh, there's a new one, I guess maybe I should buy the new one. Like, they're not even really following the news. Like, these are dudes that exist, and I know kids that are 7 that the only video game they play is Minecraft. Yeah. And, like, it's just another way to spend time, I guess. It's not about, like, one console versus another, or...
I think there's just, it's for each game, there's a spectrum of involvement, and for video games in general, right? Like, the way smartphones have taken off and the way that we took off really knocked down walls, so there are so many gamers now. And so people feel like they have to be protective of this hobby or whatever, and that this is their thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to Colin's point, like, part of the reason where that concern comes from is, like, if you were a huge JRPG guy, like, Call of Duty could seem a little threatening because, like, now that's where all the money is going. Like, everything was a shooter for a few years. And so it's like, if you see it as threatening the thing that you like, then I can see where some of that, poisonous rhetoric comes from.
Sure. I mean, the JRPG example is good because Final Fantasy VII was one of those games when it came out where it made JRPGs popular for a little while and brought people into the genre, and people were like so threatened by that, you know. And to me, it was like, that's cool because now Square and other companies are going to make more RPGs and take more, risks, and that was why that was a golden age of JRPGs, was because of that game and that experience happening. I mean, we could see a similar thing with shooters. I mean, there are a lot of shooters who try to compete with each other. I like the more niche shooters that try to do different things, but more power to you if you want, if you want to buy only Call of Duty and you buy your console and you buy the DLC and that's what you do. Like, that's great. Like, I just don't get it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I wish people spent more time enjoying their stuff than talking about how everyone's opinions are bad because they're different than theirs. You want to live in a world where everyone's the same as you? That sounds fucking whack to me.
Whether it's true or not, or whether it's right or not, like, these people feel like Call of Duty is being made instead of the game that they would rather be playing. Like, that's where I think it comes from.
I suppose. Activision's doing its thing, though. I mean, Activision, we've talked about this on this podcast, I think, with the same crew before about their particular MO, which is like games have to sell a lot and they have to make lots of money, and they're not trying to make, a Vita JRPG for you. They don't care. They want to make the big shooter. They want to put it everywhere. They're not going to make exclusives. They're not going to, they're not. We talked about Prototype 2 as a game that actually sold pretty well, charted on NPD, and they still shut that studio down because it wasn't enough. That's their thing. If you don't like Activision games, don't buy them.
I would argue that I would argue that human beings like games. They like playing games, they like having fun, whether that means playing board games or crossword puzzles or playing baseball or chess. Like, every human being likes games. But when we say gamer, that means something very specific, at least traditionally. It talks about somebody who likes video games either on a console or a PC. Like, that's a very specific thing.
I mean, we touched on this at the top of the show, and I was talking about my mom, where, gamer is something that's almost self-identified. It's like, are you a gamer? No. But you play Pokemon on your DS, and then you play Facebook games, and you play this, so aren't you a gamer? No, I'm not a gamer. Like, that's a real conversation that people happens. There's this weird, disconnect in people's minds where they don't want to self-identify that way, or they don't feel that they self-identify that way. Like, my mom plays Wii all the time, and is the 60-year-old woman would never say she's a gamer. It's just people don't want to label themselves that way.
I wonder if that'll ever change.
I bet it will. I mean, I'm not a movie watcher.
That's what I'm saying. But everybody loves movies. And there isn't a subset of people who are like movie-ers or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's cinephiles though and stuff like that. Some people would self-identify as big movie buffs, and other people just casually go to Avengers. And I don't think it's that different.
But they don't argue about it and get into these giant things. I think it's just, another thing of how young video games still are. That there still are generations of people who don't have games as a daily part of their life.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know if it is that video games are young or if it's just that movies are, there are people that love Woody Allen movies and look down their nose at Transformers. See that as I wish.
That's just a person. That's a person. People know that. Transformers are terrible movies.
But it's people do look down their nose at the big blockbusters and prefer art house films, right? And people that are really, really deep into video games are maybe the equivalent of that. I don't know that it's just. We always talk about how video games are young, and in a couple decades they'll be a lot more accepted. And I feel I don't know. Maybe it's always going to be this way a little bit.
I'll bet you pizza it's not.
I already owe you one.
Right, so in 20 years,
a couple decades, we want to see what's up.
We have witnesses. In 20 years, if it hasn't changed, Justin owes Greg a pizza.
Space pizza.
Yeah.
To wrap up and bring it back to the original two questions. First of all, does it matter? Is it important to identify which people are gamers?
No.
No, definitely not.
Okay. Then the second question, how do we define our gamer? Then isn't as important, I guess.
Yeah, I think gamer is self-identified. I think you identify yourself as a gamer, then you determine what that means for you, in my opinion.
Thanks, guys. Viewers, what do you think? Do you self-identify as a gamer, and how do you define the term gamer? Let us know in the comments, let us know on Twitter, and stay tuned for more from IGN Game Scoop.